Ex-teachers, professors of Reddit, what was your duck this moment? Parents yelling at me for accusing their little prince of acting out and getting zero support from administration. The principal's niece made a B in my freshman geography class and she wanted me to bump it to an A because the child could not get into Texas A&M with a B in a freshman class on her record. This school also pressured teachers to fail no students. I failed a college student who never came to class and missed both the midterm and final exams. The influential parents complained to the school. The administration later went into the digital records and changed the fail to a passing grade without my knowledge. I found it out later, third hand. Ergo, I refused to sign a second-year contract they offered to me. Kid poured gasoline under the door of my room after hours and lit it, burning most of the room. The facility guys worked all weekend to clean it up and paint it, hauling in new desks to replace those burned. Not long after that, I found out I could make more money with less hassle by waiting tables at the beach. Plus the beach has women in bikinis. Full stop. I was gone a week later. I had a student that copied off another kid during a test. I gave him a 0%. The parents came in to complain to administration that, since I hadn't explicitly said during the first day orientation that cheating wasn't allowed, it was an unfair punishment. Administration forced me to allow him an opportunity to retake the test. He never retook the test, and the grade of 0 stood. Still, I was so disillusioned by the entire experience that I started looking the next day at college programs that I could use to transition away from public education. End of year assessing students to see who'd progress through to the second year. While assessing the work, the department head came in and said we had to fail X amount due to facilities and resources for the next year. He then returned an hour later and said that due to the budget we actually needed to pass a higher number than originally thought. I completely ignored what he'd said and carried on marking on merit, but it was the proverbial straw. Edit. This was a UK university a few years ago. The system has been really messed up in recent years. I was a high school teacher with 7 years experience in my district and a master's degree. I was making $49K. This was 2013. I was talking to a friend who was in from out of town. This friend had barely made it through his bachelor's degree, even with a lot of help from him and other friends. Over dinner he was complaining about not getting a good enough raise, so he was only making $143K at his software consulting job. He didn't do the technical stuff. More customer relations. I left teaching to make more money. But it has taken a while, and I really miss working with the kids. Wish I had stayed in teaching. Edit. To be clear, I don't begrudge my friend a penny. Good for people who do well. Edit. A letter. My mom retired as a special education teacher after a student bit her hard enough to draw blood. She had to get a ton of tests for everything from hepatitis to freaking rabies. She was fine, thankfully, but that was when she decided that she'd had enough. She went on to sub for non-special ed kids and eventually to do administrative work at a charity for ASD individuals. Mine wasn't so much a bad duck this moment. I used to teach developmentally delayed kids and it was awesome. The one moment that sticks out the most was when we were doing a lesson on dinosaurs. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, the kids were having a blast pretending to be dinosaurs, so we just said duck the lesson and had dinosaur day. Pretty much the whole day was spent acting like dinosaurs and doing dinosaur-y things. Going through my duck this moment right now. Been in special education since 2007. District I work in desperately wants teachers to start new classrooms due to overcrowding, yet they don't want to hire the right people. They'd rather hire fellow locals from high school in the area who the admins know versus hiring qualified people from the outside. Our special education admin has zero spec ed experience and his replacement also has no spec ed experience. Not fun at all. A female student I had disciplinary issues with accused me of hitting on her and making obscene gestures towards her. I'm an openly gay man and most of the staff knew this, yet the district still put me on suspension while they investigated. They were able to prove she was lying, but the district decided that the best course of action was to transfer me to another school instead of, punishing the student. I quit at the end of the school year and got a job in banking. So I was a TA for a college course, Introduction to Information Assurance. One of the labs for the class involved performing a SQL injection. If you don't know what that means, just know that you have to build your input string carefully. The attack required a very specific input. Well, this one student was getting frustrated and asked for some help. After looking at his input string, I realized he had it just right. Except he was missing a terminator on part of the input. Semicolons. Am I right? I pointed out the simple mistake and he didn't take it well. He smashed his own face on the keyboard, logged off the machine, thanked me, and left the class. I knew this level of teaching wasn't for me. I don't know what he's been up to, but I can't imagine a coworker responding to bugs like that. I had a religion teacher in high school named Mr. Nguyen, who was working on becoming a Jesuit priest and was a really cool guy. There was a kid in my class who was an annoying smartass, but Mr. Nguyen was always really patient with him, until one day he pushed him too far. I forgot exactly what the kid said, but it definitely crossed the line. Mr. Nguyen slammed his fists on his desk and shouted, "Why can't you ever shut the duck up?" He then picked up his stapler and chucked it at the kid, missing his head by a few inches and leaving a huge dent in the wall, and then stormed out into the hallway. There was another religion teacher down the hall who heard the commotion and talked to Mr. Nguyen in the hall for a while to calm him down. He didn't give up on teaching, but it was a pretty extreme duck this moment I witnessed. 2 weeks into my first year teaching 9th grade math, I had a girl attack another girl for no reason in my class. She was grabbing onto her hair really tightly and I was trying to break it up. Another student tried to help me out and somehow the instigating student managed to punch him in the face and give him a bloody nose while still holding onto the other student's hair. Now what makes this story relevant is I literally said the words "duck this" while trying to break up the fight. Not loud, not to a student, but just like "duck this, I'm not gonna let this happen in my class right now." Well, the instigating student decided to tell the principal that I was cursing at her, despite the other students in the class supporting me and the fact that this student had a history of violence. I got a letter in my permanent file saying I had used inappropriate language towards a student. Duck that. Teaching taught me a lot, but I couldn't do it for more than a couple years. Really respect those that make it their career. When the prestigious high school I was working at focused on sports more than academics. On top of that, it turned out that the principal overrode teachers' marks if they tried giving students a failing grade. Duck that. Told this story 100 times already, but it was the time I was breaking up a fight between a 12-year-old boy and girl, and the boy turned around and punched me in the nuts as hard as he could. The school administrators did nothing. His mom was in the room with him. She did nothing. The general feeling was, this kid's mom pays tuition. Deal with it. I dealt with it by leaving the school, opening my own private school, and taking half the students with me. When the principal told me one of my students' mother was getting her secondary education certification so she could move up to teach HS math, where her son was, so they wouldn't be renewing my contract to teach the following year, but they were in need of a network administrator for the school district, and they were willing to pay me a teacher's $25,000 salary to do it, and I would be answering to each building principal, like a janitor, not to the superintendent, like a district level admin. Was substituting at a low-income middle school for the day, about 40 students per class. Just had a simple worksheet for them to work on every hour rotation. Spent the day breaking up fist fights, chairs or desks being thrown across the room, students having screaming matches, students climbing and dancing on desks, students just leaving class during the chaos. I had 6 students turn in the completed worksheet for an entire day of class rotations. I realized I was no longer a teacher but a prison guard with less benefits and no way to defend myself. I guarantee 80% of these kids will end up dead or in prison before the age of 25. Never again. I was teaching middle school English while overseas in Europe when 2 students, a boy and a girl, began viciously fighting after the boy made comments about the girl's mother. For most people, this would be easy to break up, but as a 5 feet 5 inches manlet, both the 13-year-old kids had several inches and pounds on me. When I positioned myself in between them, they took a break from fighting each other to work as a team to push me over a desk. They then promptly resumed punching each other's lights out. I quit that week. Edit. In case anyone is interested. The fight ended abruptly when the girl gave the boy a nosebleed and he finally let go of her ponytail. I have to. Early in my career, I had students who were plagiarizing lab reports. I turned them in, mostly because I felt I had to. The school made a huge ducking deal about cheating and had an academic honesty pledge statement students wrote on every test. One set of parents screamed at me over the phone. Next thing I know, I had a meeting with the vice principal who said they didn't want the cheating to interfere with the student's future and he ripped up all the plagiarism reports I wrote that year. My second time saying duck this was based on the cumulative effects of being unsupported by the school. They changed which courses I was teaching and the grade level. We had a construction project going on so there was constant noise, including beeping and drilling. Even when they promised it wouldn't be during the school day, that was a lie. Stupid school-wide initiatives, or pointless meetings, incompetent high-ups. It's the adults in the system that make it hard to be a teacher. The kids are generally not the problem. Mother and father were teachers. For mother, when a parent, dad, tried to punch her in the face because his son had to repeat the year, the kid was a disaster and put zero effort in class. Later, someone scratched her car, put stickers on it and wrote slurs with liquid paper on the windows. She asked for anticipated retirement after this. For father, a male teacher, co-worker told him they should fix their problems with punches outside. Father is no small, so he stood above him and told him okay, let's go. The other suddenly did not want to keep going. The same day, a mother came because his son was not doing as good as she considered fair, and tried to seduce him. For both, not as teacher, but in a particular school, when a male co-worker told father they should have a private party, and if you behave, mother's name, dear, we will invite you. Father told him this was out of place and began to look for other schools to teach. For both, too much work, stress and problems, too little pay and benefits. To the point they had to wait half an hour to talk when they came back home before interacting with anyone. Here's another for ex-teachers. Why do you gravitate towards working in liquor stores after? Real question. 3 past teachers of mine work in liquor stores now. The exact moment I decided that I wanted nothing to do with teaching anymore was when I was teaching a summer college class in differential equations while I was in graduate school. Most students are pretty checked out of mathematics by that point in their academic career and summer classes were the worst for student ennui. The day before each test, we would go over topics and example problems that might be on the test. I told them that the questions on the test would be very similar to each and every example that I was giving. I actually gave them every problem on the test verbatim in that class. The students were also allowed an entire sheet of paper to use on the test. The average was 55/100. I gave them the answers to the test and practically told them so and the average was still a failing grade. Screw teaching these ungrateful dumbasses. Not sure if this qualifies but I was an English teacher in China. I taught kindergarten and the little emperor syndrome really is a thing. The little boys in the class were total its, and the regular classroom teachers gave exactly 0 ducks in restraining them. Though I saw a little girl get slapped for acting up. My breaking point was when I was in front of the class teaching and one little boy was running around in a circle right in front of me. I was ignoring him, but then he started slapping me really hard in the legs every time he went past me. On about the 6th circle, he wound up his arm to slap me and I just nailed him. Full on 2-handed shove. The kid went flying, skidded across the floor looking pretty stunned, though didn't cry. Then the teachers took it upon themselves to come over and give him it, make him apologize and sit back down. At that point I figured I'm literally assaulting 6-year-olds. Probably best that I get out of this country. I left with 3 months still on my contract. No regrets. I worked at an elementary school as a paraprofessional. We had a 9-year-old psychopath. The day he was kicked out pulled out by mom was the best day of that year. The whole year in general sucked. We had 13 kids and only 2 head teachers, plus 2 paras, including myself. We had that psycho kid to deal with as well as several other highly behavioral kids. We had one of the head teachers leave on maternity and leave no plans. The other para quit unexpectedly. I was so stressed that I was losing weight and my hair. I was experiencing other health problems with my monthly cycle to the point that I almost passed out due to blood loss 1 month. When my husband's grandmother died, I was given grief about asking for a day off for her funeral. We hired another para 3 months after the first one left. We had subs filling in, and she was just awful. Everything that went wrong I was blamed for. A kid threw a book at my back and caused a bruise on my spine. By the end of April I turned in my 2-week notice. I felt no guilt. I left during the first month into spring semester at a poor rural high school. It was my first year teaching. Went from professional life to teaching through a state program. Absolutely no support from the administration. One class had over 30 students. Another had half the class as troublemakers who would not calm down. Had a bomb threat, a gun found on a kid, student death, and a teacher fired for an inappropriate relationship with a student all before Thanksgiving break. A quarter of the teaching staff was new. 2 people in my department had already left. Several teachers had already quit, and the interim principal and administration were refusing to help teachers with anything, and actually blamed us. I'm trying to hang on. I'm hating every day of my life, and I'm thinking that all I need to do is make it through 1 year and I can do something else. Then early February, the principal calls me in and tells me that he thinks that I'm not a good fit, and at the end of the year I will need to go to another school or I will be terminated. In the real world, you don't tell someone you're fired but stay on for a few more months and then expect them to stick around. I was out of there and thankful for it, although it hurt to abandon my fellow teachers and the students. Also, I had 1 teacher of the month during the fall semester, so I couldn't have been that bad. They had done this because I refused to fill out a slip of paper indicating if I would be staying on for next year. Still a teacher here but very nearly left the profession. During my EPD, early professional development, year, which here in Northern Ireland is your first year of teaching, I was hired by a school with a really rough reputation. Started in September and was given some of the toughest classes in the school, which I thought was a valuable learning experience even though it was really difficult. Principal called me into her office in November to tell me that she thought I was a terrible teacher and that she regretted ever hiring me. Direct quotes from her. Was given no constructive feedback or advice. Then was thrown back into the classroom for the rest of the day. Had no choice but to stay there as teaching jobs here are so few and far between. But this situation repeated itself in March, with her then telling me that I'd never be a good teacher and that I'd be doing the education system a favor if I quit and went back to working in the shop where I used to work. Also told me then that she had advertised my position and replaced me for the following school year without my prior knowledge. Then avoided her until June, when my classes sat their exams. GCSE class got 100% AC. Other classes did remarkably well. She had the nerve to offer me a reference on my last day, so I told her she could shove it up her ass. In another school now and so much happier. Have support of an amazing principal who regularly checks in and is impressed with the work I'm doing with my classes. Glad I stuck with it.